I don't know. Santa Claus showed up, I guess. Better late than never. But I don't know if he plans on staying around that long.
Yeah, well, he came with an empty bag, I think. There wasn't much to give out by the time he got here. I think the viewers want to watch. We look like we're at a transition phase here. Rally is sputtering a little bit. If I were going to look at any particular group, I would home in on the FANG stocks here, because I think they will be indicative. They start to fray around the edges, then we might see the rally begin to fade.
We've been watching those and talking about those earlier this morning. How important is it as you go into 2019 for that group of stocks to lead back up? Like, they certainly had a big impact on the way down.
Yeah, no, I think you need them to be unified and consistent. A couple will always look a little bit better, but if they start to fray around the edges, if Facebook starts to get hit again and fall apart, and I think you want to see if they can all demonstrate unified strength, which was clearly what they had done.
It's interesting. I mean, there are people who say FANG's dead as a group, that those stocks are never going to trade together anymore. Now they're each their own individual stories. There are obvious big questions about Facebook, and now questions about Apple. Maybe they don't trade together again.
Well, if they don't trade together again, then we're going to have more volatility creep into the market. I think unless they can emerge in leadership, there's not many other groups that are going to be able to reassert leadership rather easily. The financials are not going to do it. You've got, as Sarah pointed out earlier, a Brexit deadline will be looming, and people for years since the original vote have been saying, well, it's a big deal with Brexit, nothing's happened. Well, that's because it hasn't been implemented yet. Once it gets implemented, all hell will break loose. So we'll see.
Art, unusual setup going into the year. Obviously, the intensity of the selling we saw in a weak December. What does that tell you, if anything, in terms of as we get into the new year and the calendar flips and people have kind of a new year of performance to play with?
Well, it will be interesting to see. As I think you may have noted earlier this morning, almost none of the seasonal patterns lived up to anything we wanted them to do or expected. Now, I would think the middle of January should be interesting. There's supposedly a lot of money out there. There's money out there from rebalancing out of fixed income into equities, so some of that's sitting in cash. People waiting to get past the first 2 weeks to make sure there's no residual tax selling and whatever in there. So I would pick somewhere around January 15th and say, let's see if we get a second leg up here in the market.
Finally, Art, I mean, the story of today is increasingly, it looks like signs are pointing to a trade deal with China. Yes, we can't fully trust the tweets, I know, and we want to see action more than just words. But if that does happen in 2019, does that bail out the markets? How much is that good for?
Well, it would be good for a lot. You could make my day a lot better if you could tell me who initiated the call. Was it Xi? If Xi initiated the call, which would seem to fit with the weaker data that came out over the weekend, he's probably, for some reason, I suspect that the Chinese leaders get to see the data before it actually comes out.
Chinese media is reporting that President Trump initiated it.
Is that right? Okay, all right. So then that takes a little bit out of this rally then. Then we have to wait and see. But Chinese media has been saying that they believe there is some hope for a deal coming up. So that gives it a little credibility. If it was just tweets on our side, it wouldn't be worth much of anything.